Man, all I can say is just wow. Today was definitely a sad day for us wrestling fans, for the wrestling industry, all around the world. Whether you loved him or you hated him, Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, is an icon, a legend, and controversial. And Terry Bollea, the person himself, has definitely rubbed people the wrong way. But you cannot deny, and this is going to be the main focus of this video, you cannot deny the character, Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania, the Hulkster, you brother, all that is one of the biggest reasons why wrestling is what it is today. And coming from a fan who didn't start watching wrestling until 12 years ago, I've always mentioned that although I've gone back and I've watched all the WrestleManias, I've watched all the Royal Rumbles, I've watched all the SummerSlams, a couple other little odds and ends I've watched as well, I say out of respect that some of these legends, I can't hold them as high as other people because they're not the reason why I watch wrestling or the reason why I got into wrestling. They're not from my era of wrestling. But as I sit here today and reflect on Hulk Hogan and who he was to me, I think about how he was an influence on the people that made me a wrestling fan. The Daniel Bryans, the Seth Rollins, the Gunthers, the Rusevs, the Jey Uso, several others I know. I'm sure I've mentioned before how big of Hulk Hogan fans they were. Some, of course, aren't. I may have mentioned a few that may have not been. Who knows? But still, again, you cannot look at the wrestling business and say Hulk Hogan is not one of the reasons why wrestling is where it is today. Heck, I'll even put this out there too. When it comes time to talk about Vince McMahon in this moment, which, will happen when it happens, or of course, obviously, hoping, for anyone, whether you love them or hate them, they live as long of a life as they're meant to be. I'd be saying the same thing about Vince. I don't like Vince McMahon as a person. I don't like the way, he booked the shows. He made us fans feel stupid sometimes. Again, I can't judge him based off of his allegations because he hasn't really been proven innocent or guilty right now. So I can't judge him based off that. But if something would happen to him, I'd be saying the same exact thing. Yes, I don't like Vince McMahon. Hulk Hogan, again, I'm not someone who likes to dive into like politics or some of the other things that he's controversy about. Again, I stay out of stuff like that. But even if I did have like a firm opinion on him, no matter how I felt, I'd be man enough as a wrestling fan to come here and admit, although I may not be the biggest fan of the person in general, they're the reason why they have somewhat of an impact on me personally as a late bloomer fan. But also, I know wrestling wouldn't be where it was today if it wasn't for these people like Hulk Hogan. Real name, Terry Bollea. Ladies and gentlemen, Hulk Hogan sadly passed away today, July 24th, 2025, at the age of 71 in Clearwater, Florida. Apparently, didn't say who had called 911, but 911 responded to a call around 9:51 this morning that Hogan had gone into cardiac arrest, massive cardiac arrest. Apparently, they tried to revive him like 30 times as they stretched him out on his way to the hospital, and they pronounced him dead, I think, at around like 11:17 this morning, from what I've heard. Again, just 71 years old. I know Hogan has been rumored to be dealing with some health issues recently. I thought I read somewhere he was on like a ventilator or something, but I can't remember what it was. But I do remember recently saying that Hogan wasn't doing good health-wise, which kind of surprised because as far as I know, I think the last time we saw Hogan, from what I can remember at least, was the Raw on Netflix debut when he got booed out of the building in Los Angeles, which again doesn't surprise me, but still, if that in fact was his last TV appearance, well, for WWE at least, because they had showed some interview footage from maybe just a few days ago, honestly, of him. He doesn't have the full white beard. He kind of has the Hollywood Hulk Hogan look somewhat, where like, the mustache, some like the thicker stuff are white, but the rest was just like all dark colored and whatnot. But if that was his last appearance on live TV, that's kind of sad that he got booed out of the building, unfortunately. But we know at the time, and again, people had their opinions on the Hulkster. They expressed them. But right now, again, we just sit back and just look back and just realize where we would be today if Hulk Hogan was never a part of this. Of course, if you go back and watch the Mr. McMahon docuseries, we all know that when Vince bought the company from his father, he wanted to not just be just a wrestling company. He wanted to take like wrestling and like trends on television and merge them together from what it was. And of course he did need to have like a top guy, like a main character, like the one that was going to really draw the interest onto the product. And we all remember he originally wanted to be Dusty Rhodes, but I guess Dusty and Vince didn't quite see the same vision. So that's when Hulk Hogan became his man. And if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania wouldn't exist. Hulk Hogan, the first several WrestleManias, was the headliner. Heck, whenever they were trying to chance to go into like the bigger arenas, like at WrestleMania 3, with him and Andre the Giant, the pressure was on Hogan to make the moment happen, to draw the audience to the shows. Again, even though, of course, he was overpushed, there were times where he didn't want to put people over, like Bret Hart, or, of course, when he feuded with Shawn Michaels in 2005, leading to that SummerSlam match where Shawn just oversold like crazy for Hogan, because obviously he was bitter that Hogan didn't want to put him over. But still, like I said, he would not have, jump-started the wrestling business to where it was today. He wouldn't have had WrestleMania become like an annual thing. He wouldn't, of course, he didn't win the first Rumble. He won like one of the earlier Rumbles. I can't remember which year it was at this point. But still, like, he was the draw. He was the guy. Vince McMahon was the businessman. Hulk Hogan was the one that was going to be, entertaining us to draw us into the product. And that's exactly what he did. Again, he was more known as a character gimmick, not so much for his in-ring work, but the energy, wherever he presented, that's what drew a crowd. Did they get sick of it eventually? Yes, especially at WrestleMania 9 when he was about to leave the company anyways, but he politicked his way into being Yokozuna for the world title at WrestleMania 9. Not one of his finest moments, to be honest. But then you think of like iconic matches he had, like the title for title match against Ultimate Warrior. We also have, again, although the overselling, I did like the match with him and Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam 2005. We also had, of course, I think a lot of people like to talk about Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 18. The match where, again, we all thought we were, yes, people were starting to get sick of The Rock at this time too, but, he was still, entertaining over like Rover. But the crowd got behind Hogan, and literally what made that match so great is that it started off with Hogan as the villain and Rock as the face, but because of the responses, they basically called an audible and did like a de facto double turn. Hogan played the babyface and Rock switched over to being the heel during the match. Some of the best crowd definitely one of the best matches for sure of all time. Moments like that, him and Macho Man Randy Savage and the Mega Powers, oh yeah, brother, all that as well. It's some of these, it's all this stuff that helped make wrestling special. Stuff that made it stand out. Other stars being built, of course, as well too. Well, even though Hogan didn't want to put over a few people, but still, it's still one of those things where it's just like, like he was a beginning piece that if he wasn't there, things would have been so different. And I know he went off to WCW and whatnot when Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the NWO, had some swings and misses there. Like, I hear he had a match with Warrior at Halloween Havoc for Hogan to get his win back, and I heard the match was god-awful. He was also part of the Finger Poke of Doom moment, where that kind of really set WCW downhill for sure. But still, again, the guy may have had some strikeouts going into business for himself. He definitely has said several things, of course, that rub people the wrong way. But again, in the wrestling business, it wouldn't be where it is today without Hulk Hogan. That is why I personally still think he's definitely got to be in the top 5. If anyone considers him at number 1, I perfectly understand why. Me, personally, it'd probably either be Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock. I still say it's my number 1. Or Undertaker. But Hogan definitely is up there in the top 5. For sure, of all time. And again, he's one of the beginning pieces, for sure. Like I said, with Andre the Giant, and Macho Man Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, all the people at the beginning of, the days when Vince McMahon, just tried to, overtake all the wrestling territories and make this company worldwide. And again, despite the fact that, the way some things ended, they all succeeded. Now, again, it is kind of sad, though, also, that Hogan died during a low point in his life. Where, again, he had, obviously had said stuff that disrespected fans, that they got bad tastes of him. Never really owned up to some of them to at least give them that satisfying ending. Or, well, I shouldn't say ending, but that satisfying, feel. To say, okay, he's human, he says stuff, whatnot, this and that. Even though really some of the stuff really isn't anybody else's business, although Hogan made it public. But, again, still, like, it's hard to, sit here and not just feel like you just lost a big piece. Like, again, I'm pretty sure, like, there's how many of these wrestlers, like I mentioned before, the guy I like today, that got into the wrestling business because of Hulk Hogan. I feel like, that we wouldn't be seeing, like, some of the big names we have today as well. Again, he was talented, he was inspirational, again, controversial at times, but, again, he is truly one of the best things wrestling has ever had. And he will be missed, sadly. So, yeah, Hulk Hogan, again, despite the fact that, again, I didn't really watch, I wasn't alive, I was too young whenever he was at his hottest. Never really watched WCW. Of course, I've seen, I watched some of the other I basically watch all of his, like, WrestleMania and all those matches for WWE. Again, I've never really seen any of his WCW matches, just stuff I've heard about it. Again, although I haven't, Hulk Hogan has not been a part of my generation of being a wrestling fan. Again, I still have to at least appreciate that he is an inspiration to many people today who I am a fan of, that they're there because he was there. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have been a wrestling fan. So Hulk Hogan, thank you for all you've done for the wrestling business, in the entertainment industry, and again, you will definitely be missed. Rest in peace to Hulk Hogan. Terry Bollea, who passed away today, July 24th, 2025, from cardiac arrest at the age of 71.